All right, welcome to the build. So it's moving quickly.
And their product velocity is intense. We're both pretty involved in the LangChain community.
This is going to be an industry, like the whole thing is going to explode.
The hype cycle, it's like just because you hear everybody start talking about these things doesn't necessarily mean it's the right.
Need to go back, find out more because it's really interesting.
We're both obsessed with AI and their entire stack is just pivoted to agents.
The next question that usually comes after that is like, well, I'm fine-tuning an open model.
That's the biggest thing with the latest spec.
An exploding distribution vector.
I'm really excited. I think everybody is. I'm not the only one.
The build. Yeah, man, there's no shortage. This week has been a lot as far as news cycle, new releases. On the run sheet, we had, Claude Skills for the demo, the redo.
The redo.
Which actually is great, especially coming out of this week. I think very relevant and can do more justice to that. LangChain Agent Builder, have you done anything with that yet?
Yeah, I played around with it. I'm keen to demo it. So the guys released their LangChain, their agent builder on their week of releases. They've been releasing a bunch of stuff. So I'm excited to show that. Yeah, you went to AI Summit. Let's talk through some of those things, some of the insights there. I want to talk through building an MCP server, right? On top of this market data analysis tool I've got, formerly called Polygon, is now called massive.com.
I saw they changed yesterday, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a bunch of other like AI news that came down the pipe. Have you been like monitoring any of that? Like Minimax?
Yeah, I saw Minimax came out and apparently, pretty like the best open source model out there. I haven't gone deep. That's where I rely on you, Tom, with the artificial analysis and the deep dive. But they did release it on Ollama Turbo or Ollama Cloud, which I kind of advertise for, no one's paying me on that. I just think it's awesome using that in collaboration with your local stuff. So I have used it on Ollama Turbo a little bit, but that's about it. And this week I've been at the conference AI Summit, so I haven't been as active on the development side. But
yeah, I actually have a question, and I want to do a little bit of a dive when I go into LangChain a bit later with you on experiments and prompt templates. I kind of feel like I've never really showed off that feature, but I actually have a live challenge at work around an optimization of an AI. It's like, I guess you would call it like an agentic, like a light agentic tool that I need to optimize. It's like one of the projects I need to run with a product manager. And I'm like, I wish I knew a bit more about that before I had to have that conversation. So I want to talk to you about that as well, or at least talk you through what I think.
Yeah, and the prompt hub is actually really powerful, and I don't hear a lot about it. So
yeah, and they don't really push it. Like I was diving through their docs and it's not really front and center, but I kind of feel like in this scenario and based on some of the case studies that I've seen, that iterative kind of prompt engineering cycle seems to be really critical. So I'm really keen to use it. I might just briefly share my screen and we can talk through this Max M2 release. Entire screen. So Minimax is an organization I know very little about. You can see from our Minimax M2, you can see at the start, like our intro with the video of you looking at llamas and stuff. That I did that actually with this Minimax model, this Minimax kind of, one version of this. So I just assumed that they were like a creative tooling kind of AI research lab. I didn't realize that they were going so hard into these other alternative models. So they've got Minimax 2, which is the one that came out, right? Obviously, they've updated their core model here and they've got a speech one. So let's talk about this one briefly. But they've also got these other ones.
It. I looked past it, Tom, because of that. Because I was like, oh, it's image model. And then I saw it a couple other places and I was like, oh, it's
whatever.
Something I can use.
It's actually something I can use. And they have been releasing product as well. So they're one of the Asian-based research labs, right? And they did actually release their own agent kind of experience, and they try and build products, wrappers around these things as well, which is super cool. The Minimax M2, if we just check out artificial analysis, this was the headline was this meta benchmark that these guys have on intelligence here. Basically, just underneath Claude 4.5 Sonnet, right? And the model is That's token windows, 205,000 tokens. So not huge, relatively standard, pretty big, obviously. And then it's also open weight or open source, right? Which is pretty cool, which is great. So you can then go and do your own inference and stuff. Interestingly, like, seems like when some of these key models come out that have this approximate benchmark quality to some of the ones that we're used to. So like, for example, I use Claude Code, so do you, Max, and I pay $250 a month or $200 a month for it, right? This kind of thing is just going to keep happening. It's just going to drive me towards, all right, well, doing something like you. Open code, like Olama Cloud versus local, and then some combination of, you know, that integrated into my dev environment. Like I feel like it's time. And then also I've heard stories like of other like actual dedicated dev teams that just do an entire rip and replace and will just go onto one of these other models just specifically and then optimize it for their own use cases, which is pretty cool. It's still not as good as Codex, GPT-5 Codex. And I've been absolutely slamming GPT-5 Pro this week. I know we spoke about that a couple of shows back, and I'm like, I don't really have use cases for it. I've got a couple of use cases for it now, like really heavy lifting data analysis, kind of high end, like combo of like analysis, kind of prediction modeling, a bunch of data, spinning up, you know, a bunch of custom Python code to build a model. And it is just excellent, like exceptional, to the point where I don't spend the time going off and say briefing other people or trying to engage, you know, outside of even my own team just to get the answer, because I can push it in there and do iterative cycles with it. It takes 30 minutes on some of these runs and the results are exceptional.
You said you're writing code with 5 Pro?
Or like it'll be like, these are all data and analytics kind of prediction modeling kind of tasks. And I'll say like, all right, generate like reusable code for me that I can then validate or rerun. So it comes out as like an artifact, like a Python, like some Python code.
Sure. And then you paste it and run it.
As well as the result, so that then I can say, take it. Because one of the problems is like, I found with this, you go through a cycle, you're like, there's the answer I need. And then you try and take it out into the business and try and make your case. But it's just it's not coherent. People don't trust you. You can't just copy and paste the entire chat and say, hey, just read it. You kind of have to verify and like prove yourself. So that's the only reason. And then I after that experience, I'm like, every single manager, product manager, senior like executive should just be spending time with GPT-5 Pro every day, in my opinion. I've done a complete 180 on that by model type. Let's get back to Minimax 2. So you're a big user of GPT OSS, right? This is the one you use most of the time.
Have been. Yep.
Have been. All right. So I reckon for the homework, you should dive into this. Try and get it running on your... could you get that running on your DGX, your Spark? Or is
I
that
haven't
too big?
even looked at the size of that model. And I guess probably Hugging Face.
Yeah. So it said, let's go back over to their site and check it out. But this is the model card on their website. Or this is their blog post, sorry. And this is the highlight thing. The headline thing that got everyone excited was 8% of the price of Claude Sonnet, right? And twice the speed, which is a pretty big headline. It's 120 gigabytes, so 120 billion parameters, optimized for agentic tool use, programming, and deep research. And here's its performance on all these benchmarks. Browser comp, SweBench is the one we often refer to. Everyone's kind of on the same page for at least the open source models there. And if we go and check out this is the headline, artificial analysis benchmark, right? So it's fast and it's significantly more intelligent. Still haven't seen my Gemini 3 popping. There's even a poly market for Gemini 3 to come out.
That's
not
like, surprising.
That is such a grift. Like obviously someone internally knows that, puts it up, right? And starts making money. Like it's just, I guess if you want to know when things are going to happen, you should go to poly market. But so if we go to let's go to the model card. I found some of these comparisons curious here when I was looking through. Yeah, cost per task. So it's like win, tie, loss benchmarks. So they're saying like agentic performance with a equivalent, a loss, or a better than benchmark against these other core models. Average cost per task is 55 cents versus Sonnet's $4.40. But it's not as good. Basically, it might be close, but it's obviously not as good, right? So if you want to get developers to come over, particularly here, to over, the Thai equivalent would mean a significant break in their workflow just for an equivalent outcome. Like, so it's not going to take over Claude
Right.
4.5 yet, right? Even with that cost reduction, although that's pretty significant. I'd be surprised at what that looks like on Claude Max, because those guys, like, we don't pay that equivalent cost, right? So that they need to compete on the cost model that's subsidized, that Anthropic subsidizes if they're going to want to capture that share. But still, for an open weight model, that's pretty incredible.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, it's exciting, but this has kind of been the case for a lot. Every time a new iteration of the models come out, it's like, that's awesome. It's a little bit better. But then once you start integrating into your tools and your workflows, it's like, at what point is it worth it to make that jump? And I've actually heard some big development teams talking about that lately. And you mentioned that as well. People looking to rip and replace. But, you know, if it's only 3 points better, 4 points better, it may not even be worth it at that point. So
yeah, I think it, like, we have our perspective as like individual, like indie hackers.
mm-hmm.
And then we both got relative perspectives on like larger organizations, because we've both worked in those before and at the moment. But then if you were to look at like a agentic rollout across like a coding assistant across like a team of say 200 engineers connected into Cursor, what would be or Cursor or your IDE, whatever it is, like what would be the ideal scenario? If you're paying like what would that be? 200, 100 developers, 20 grand a month on Claude Max, right? That's when it starts looking, or on your workflows, like actual like application workflows, like that's when it starts to look interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got this little agent builder here that they released that looks pretty cool as a dummy app.
That I do not support this message of going to minimax.com. Run it yourself or in a private cloud or something like that.
Well, you don't trust the Chinese?
Well, you don't have to put it that way, but yeah, control your data.
My data, which is basically just like transcripts of me talking to you every Friday, probably not that valuable, given that it's also going to go onto YouTube. Here we go. Here's the model, and a bunch of people are doing fine tunes already. This is quite cool. I love seeing this sort of community stuff kick off. Yeah, you should give this a go on your.
Well,
on your
I
Spark.
just looked. It sounds like you need 120 gigs of RAM to load this model. So the DGX
I got
Spark,
that
I
wrong.
think
229 billion. Yeah, I got that wrong. It is 229 billion parameters. So yeah, 220 gigabytes, not 120.
Right.
That was my mistake.
So I guess the DGX can run models up to 200, which there really aren't many that, like the 120 OSS, and then the Minimax is going to be like right out of that range. So I guess I should have bought two.
Should have bought two. That's funny. How are you going with your DGX? Still
I really haven't been able to do much with it. Yeah, since last week. I do run a deep agent setup in Docker that I connect to remotely as a MCP server, but that's about it so far. And that's not necessarily something that showcases the capabilities of the DGX and what it's about, but I can run GPT, OSS, some of these local models, which I enjoy.
Well, I look forward to the updates. Maybe you'll just send it to me to play with at some point, and I'll give you all my music gear, and you can like take over that project.
No, I am serious, Tom. You said you were going to bring some music to this show.
Yeah,
so
I did.
I expected.
I did. At least I finally got my DJ set up again. So set up again. So Big Tom coming at you.
Awesome.
What else do we have? All right, where do you want to go next? Because there's a bunch of other stuff that happened.
Well, yeah, I can tell you a little bit about my week, and that will, I think, transition into some of our other topics.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so I had the pleasure of attending and being a part of the, I guess, panel. I did a fireside chat to kick off this AI summit for the hosting company is Enable. So and that's N-ABLE. Previously, a lot of people know SolarWinds. So we're part of SolarWinds, and they're kind of a big player in the space. So I was able to go and talk about my experiences as a managed services provider. I mean, that's where I've spent most of my career. And so having the crossover of, my passion of AI and where I spend my time today and having that experience previously, I think hopefully resonated with people. And I guess my main message that I was trying to get through to people is that as managed services providers, the core of your business is infrastructure. And I feel like there are large gaps as far as how do you handle AI and infrastructure and what exactly does that mean? And, Tom, like I just said, don't go to minimax.com, run that yourself.
Yeah.
So I spoke on some things like AI gateways, and that will get into sandboxes. We'll talk about that when it comes to Claude Skills. But yeah, overall, it was a awesome event. The team there so cool, and I met so many awesome people and inspiring people. I learned from everybody there as well. So I appreciated that opportunity. And then just do a quick plug. The reason that the way that I got involved there in the first place is through this open source initiative or organization called CAT-MIP, CAT-MIP.org. It's the consortium for AI terminology for MSPs and IT pros. So this is very related, if not 100% related to MCP. And the idea with this standards committee is, as managed services providers and anybody that's managing IT and infrastructure, there's zero room for the models to get confused or call the wrong tools, the wrong terms. So if you're curious or you deal with in the space at all, feel free to reach out to me because this is a wonderful group of people. And so we have few people on the board, and I think we have like 50 or 60 people that are looking to get involved. So this is going to be really, really cool, and hopefully a big part of just setting the standard for the entire industry. So I'm very excited about it.
I was just reading the mission, and I'm like, oh, taxonomy, what does that actually mean? I'm like, actually, that is a massive problem because agents use natural language. Natural language is, well, like English anyway, is incredibly like the synonym problem is a real thing, right? Hence why humans communicating with other humans often is the source of most organizational challenges. And we're basically embedding those organizational challenges into our software now, unless we do something like this, right? Yeah, actually that's a really great point. I think and you hear this with, say, data analytics people, like the guys, I think the founder of Snowflake said this on a podcast. He's like, you would not believe how many people have a different term for customer. Something that like is basic, right?
Exactly.
Like, no,
the big one is,
yeah, like anything to do with like taxonomy is a massive challenge. And so he's like, well, how do you standardize that?
The word agent and how many different meanings that has, right? Especially now, because we always used the word agent before. So now it's things like that where, every model behaves differently. People are going to design their MCP servers and their agents differently, but having that core
or even
that everybody agrees on is key.
Like we use acronyms, right? And they're the worst because you're compressing a meaning into an acronym, which businesses do all the time. And then agents and AI agents output acronyms for convenience, right? I did this analysis. Here's this thing, and it's like an acronym for something, and then it's creating its own taxonomy. Yeah.
Well, there's everything's on GitHub. Right now we have we're working through the best way to go about this, but there is a GitHub account. You should be able to get there through this website. So anyways, yeah, that's kind of a little bit about my week and CAT-MIP. I'll also note it's led by Nicole Renicky is the AI leader at Enable, and she's very, very accomplished person and inspiring individual to know. So pleasure to be part of that group. I'm having a blast with it. So very exciting.
Nice. Very nice. Awesome. When are we going to go to a conference together again? Invite me next time.
You go to plenty of conferences, I think. And you come to Texas without even coming to see me. I mean, I think this.
Actually, I'm going to Dallas next week as well. It's like I'm avoiding you. I'm flying to all of the cities in Texas other than the one where you live. Very good. All right, that's really cool. Well, yeah, invite me next time, you prick. All right, where are we going next? Do you want to actually? Can I just do a?
Do you want to do Polygon or Massive?
Yeah, why don't I quickly talk you through that? And then maybe I can just ask you some questions about it. But basically, before I do that, is a good segue. So a bunch of market stuff happened this week, which went crazy. I don't know if you're following it. Like, I don't want to turn this into like a market updates thing, but Jesus, some of the stuff that's going down is mental.
I agree. Yeah, it's totally relevant.
One of the things I just wanted to highlight was Google. I took a bet on Google a while back, and it is just, it is absolutely ripping. Like the bets that those guys are making are really starting to pay off. I saw a stat that Gemini has 600 to 650 million DAUs, like daily active users. That's crazy. Then AI
what was
mode
OpenAI
is
at? Like
800, right? So that's not insignificant, right? I think we always write off Google as like, oh, they can't do consumer. It's kind of like a hangover from like, the what was that crappy social media network?
Google Graveyard.
Google.
No, there's a site.
The Google Graveyard. Oh yeah, they are extreme about sunsetting stuff, which I kind of like actually. As much as I miss some of those products, I'm like, yeah, more companies should be more ruthless about sunsetting shit. But I think we kind of write them off as like not being able to, execute on consumer products. But YouTube and now Gemini seem to be proving that wrong, right? And then they've got AI mode really humming, and then they talked about the amount of tokens that they're processing now, and the projection out is like huge, way larger than they were expecting. Like I don't even know how you measure them. It's like multi-trillion. What's more than a trillion? A quintillion tokens, like projection in terms of like what their cloud stack is going to process. They've got the deal with Anthropic it's like, I think we talked about that on the last show, where Anthropic are basically slated to start using TPUs. And then I think they're committed to buy like 1 million TPUs off them. Their cloud business is going bananas, and they're catching up pretty fast to the two leaders, while Amazon seems to just be tanking, right? Like they're just not, like their AWS doesn't seem to be growing enough. I saw this great quote about AWS on X the other day that was just like, oh yeah, it's like the boomer cloud, which I love.
The boomer cloud.
Boomer cloud,
like generation.
Like if you're a boomer, you use AWS. I'm like, oh, that's such a burn. It's what my kids call me. They're like, all right, hey, okay, boomer. I'm like, I'm 40 years old. Don't do that to me.
Yeah, you're like.
But as a result, like they're just crushing it, and and I think their share price has gone up by like 70% in the last, I don't know, couple of months, something like that. Then, sorry, you have a question about
sorry, before you were talking about AWS, do you know who Primogen is, the YouTuber?
There we go. Yeah.
He's kind of like a legendary, I think he made a mark at Netflix, and now runs a YouTube channel. He's like super entertaining. I love watching his stuff, even though he's kind of an AI hater. But I saw a tweet from him yesterday that, he's talking about the layoffs at Amazon. He said maybe efficiency isn't the only metric to measure. And then he showed a graph of AWS outages this week, and it was like through the roof. Like,
I don't know
if that's related, but that's a valid point.
Yeah, I doubt it's related, but it's pretty funny. Yeah. Also, I saw that. So Amazon laid off, I think they announced 30,000, laid off 15,000 in that one batch. But the news report said that that's about 2% of the total workforce, right? So it's not exactly a bloodbath of an AI bloodbath that everyone's sort of hand-wringing about, and it's mostly middle management, apparently.
Yeah.
The other big thing that happened is Microsoft and OpenAI finally kind of came to a bit of a kumbaya, right? Did you see that?
I did.
Where the OpenAI not-for-profit will control a public benefit corporation entity underneath it, right? And then Microsoft will own the stake within there, and now owns 27%. And they managed to get to a reconciliation on this AGI spec, which is like they are not like that. It's like they've basically gotten rid of that criteria, so they can basically, I think it's like basically the Microsoft IP rights to the research defined as the confidential methods used in the development of models and systems will remain in place until either the expert panel that's assigned verifies that AGI, or it expires in 2030, whichever one comes first. So it's sort of like that. And then they can basically both go off and pursue like AGI related things with other organizations. It's like they're opening up the marriage, you know?
Do you understand the details of what a public benefit corporation requires? I mean, what does that actually mean for OpenAI, especially?
I'm not an expert in it. I have seen it used occasionally. A public benefit corporation, based on my understanding, is basically a for-profit entity that basically has some sort of determination in the way that they're formed, that they also pursue other goals that are not just profit, right? But they're still regulated like a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, different to like these movements that are like B Corps, where you have like a dedication to a certain thing. But I think it's basically just a formalization of like what some companies do anyway, which is like, yeah, we want to make money, but we also want to do other things in the world that are not related to the products we sell, or the money we make, or, you know, the return for shareholders, or the experience for employees. But I don't think it actually matters that much, really. I want to know how they got this. Like, I want to know how all of this relates to like the not-for-profit like entity owning a chunk, and like how they managed to do that. Like, yeah. But anyway, so it sounds like they're at a point, and then they pre-committed to Microsoft to buy $250 billion worth of cloud compute from Azure over some period as part of the deal. The other big announcement, which I thought was cool in the markets, is Qualcomm is now entering the AI chip space, and they were the last kind of big chip provider that hadn't really moved. And Qualcomm, if you know, like they're based in San Diego near me, they make Snapdragon. They're very big in the wearables, glasses, and also mobile space, right? But apparently they're trying to enter the AI chip development environment, and hence their share price popped. I don't know if they do like a warrant deal like AMD did with OpenAI, or maybe they go and do a deal with Google, something like that would be cool.
Well, on a related note, did you see that NVIDIA made an investment in Nokia?
No. What's that? Well, I know who Nokia is, but...
Yeah, I didn't remember the details. It says they'll invest $1 billion in Nokia, which I assume is directly related to the Qualcomm stuff.
Right. I don't know. All I know is that the market's just going to keep going on a tear while they're switching money between themselves and then the Fed is going to keep cutting rates. It has cut rates. So like, it's just more fuel on the fire. Like, this thing is not going to slow down.
I saw that OpenAI. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I reckon we should start VC firms have like an anti-portfolio and a portfolio. The anti-portfolio is they track is deals that say no to. Now, you and I are not saying yes to any deals. What we should start is like a build portfolio where we basically track stuff that we talk about and things, and like packages or things that we like. Because constantly I'm seeing things in my X feed of like things that we've covered that we thought were awesome a couple of months ago, like Mem0 just raised $24 million. LangChain just raised $125 million. Like Gumloop, all of these apps. We should start a fund. I've got $10.
I agree. All you billionaires out there, come talk to us, because I agree. So many things, and some things I don't even think much about. And then later on, it becomes this huge deal. And I'm like, I guess I should have hit on that a little bit more.
Should have hit on that. Well, this is where secondaries make the money. The other one is there was a chip fab startup that Peter Thiel funded, which is trying to disrupt like how chips are manufactured to improve that process, that I thought was pretty interesting. I'm going to try and keep my eye on that, and also go
Extropic or something else.
No, it was something else. But basically, like, that's a super interesting space because like everyone's looking for disruption patterns or ripples in the armor of NVIDIA and TSMC and ASML and all these kinds of like all of the supply chain that's like driving this entire picks and shovels revolution. So they're all like, oh, is this the one that really takes out NVIDIA's or TSMC or someone's monopoly? Anyway, watch this space. All right, so what I was doing on the markets stuff, Massive, I don't know how these guys afforded this domain. They must have lashed out for that. I also thought Polygon was cooler. But anyway, Massive is a data provider, API data provider for developers, app developers, anyone who wants to build software or experiences for users that's based on public market, financial market data. Now, I want to use this in tandem with Claude or OpenAI to flesh out and validate or backtest options, trading strategies, positions, whatever. And a while back, we actually looked at this, we looked at this, and here's the data set that I'm referencing, which is this options, well, one of the data sets, options data, which is super cool. Like the fact that this even exists is amazing, and that I can just hook into it. And I wanted to connect it up to Polygon. I wanted to just connect it up to my desktop or mobile, actually not desktop, mobile Claude, and then just Claude or OpenAI, and then just like ask your questions, play around with it. So here is so this is an example you can see here. You see my screen, yeah? Here I was playing around with it. So I got the desktop MCP working, and the thing that I want to ask you about is the best, most effective way to deploy MCP servers to the cloud so I can use it on my phone or share it with friends and like collaborate on it. So like I could say, hey, here is a chat, share it with them. They could then get access to the MCP, authenticate. That experience, I thought there would be more providers where I could go, this is what I want, click here, and then I've got it, right? And so this is the MCP setup that these guys built for Polygon. Yeah, and I can ask it, all right, update this strategy with recent market data. This is on the QQQ ETF. This strategy was use, and I have to always specify use the Polygon. I assume it's still called that, Polygon MCP server only for market. And you can see it's going off there. And if I start an entire new conversation.
Now with this MCP server, did you configure an API key in your config?
Yes. Yeah.
Or is it, okay, go ahead.
So it has so this one's use Polygon. Let's see if it actually does use Polygon. There we go. Yeah, it's using it. Gets the quote. Sweet. Always allow. Cool. Etc. Etc. You get the idea, right? And so this is very raw because it's not a fine tune. There's no like, I wanted to move over into Claude Code and then like develop a trading agent with sub agents, which I was experimenting with here, where you can see like this is another run that I did around different positions, some sort of thing. Like I can't remember exactly which one, but I can go agents, and there's this trading desk orchestrator agent that I just got it to generate, right? So pretty standard, but very cool. I would be interested in seeing how this could be accentuated with the skills stuff that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But this is sort of like this delivered a better experience in terms of like a better output, better, more manageable. The outputs were kind of formatted in a way that was a bit easy to read in terms of like trading, like data, the way that's sort of like generally presented and how you should think about some of these things. So that was quite good. That was pretty good. But what I couldn't do, I'll give you an update on that. This thing, you can see the process is like goes through, it gets this data. All right, here, this is the thought process. I help you analyze the bearish scenario. This is what it thinks, this is positions, etc., etc. It wasn't great because like it left out a few factors that I would have preferred, but you can just keep, going back. All right, and here's a recommendation. If entering $650, primarily buy this distribution. Cool. Okay. This is the MCP server here, right? Well, this is like what they've built. It's not perfect. Like it's not amazing. It's a bit constrained, right? what I wanted to ask you is like, what do you think is the best way, most effective way to basically take something like this and then host it somewhere so that, for example, I talked through these trading ideas with a friend of mine who's also a trader, an options trader, so that I could just say, hey, just add this to your ChatGPT mobile app or, Claude, whatever. I'll make you an API key, so on my account here, so I can like cover it off. I think it's, here we go. Doesn't even matter. I don't have to show you. That's pretty basic. But what's the best way? Like I was looking at, so I know we've covered a couple of things with Cloudflare. There are hosted services, I assume. Like, what do you think is the best way so that I could then go and just use it on?
Yeah. And Tom, earlier I spoke a little bit about infrastructure and how development does not necessarily mean infrastructure, and it still requires some expertise on that side. And I think that's what a lot of people are starting to figure out. So like you said, there's Cloudflare. However, that MCP server is Python, correct?
Yeah, and that was one of the problems.
So Cloudflare is basically JavaScript. They do have containers that you can run Python in and sandboxes, but that's not always going to make sense. So you could run it that way, but I would say the easiest, probably like a Docker container. I use Azure cloud apps quite often for things like that because, I am big into the Cloudflare. I do a lot on the Cloudflare platform, but for quick, easy Python type of stuff, I'll just spin up an Azure container app.
Okay, why do you use that?
So that would be an option.
Why do you use Azure? Because so I went in deep into ChatGPT, and this is another reason why answer engine optimization search is just basically going to be the way that anybody discovers everything. It's just like basically it told me about a product called Gram. I'm like, all right, maybe I could use that, but then you have to pay for it, whatever. I've already got dev tools set up.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to have another thing, But that's basically like MCP Cloud custom toolkit, right?
Yep.
But it's pretty constrained. Also, it's like, all right, I have to buy credits. Then I only get so many tool calls every month. Like, I'm like, oh, fucking Jesus. Like,
yeah. And there are quite a few services popping up. Like Smithery's been around since day one of MCP, as far as I know. And there are ways that you can spin up cloud hosted MCP, but a lot of these are like still development tools, kind of beta. When you deploy things in the cloud, there are a lot of additional things you need as far as security controls. If you're talking about like multi-factor authentication, conditional access, those are actually pretty difficult to implement today. So that's where I feel there's a big gap. And that's something that, although I haven't talked about it much here or at all, maybe, that is what I am currently building out. At the moment, you can check out mcpcentral.io. There's not much you can do with it today, but here in the coming weeks, I will talk more about that. So, Tom, that's, your question is exactly what's driven me the direction that I'm going with creating really ecosystem infrastructure. You see there, a new generation of infrastructure for agents. You wouldn't be able to tell really what the idea is just looking at it. Looks like an MCP marketplace, which there are hundreds of, but the idea is building out the entire infrastructure for the agent layer and then being able to serve agents, tools. We're going to talk about skills. There's a lot of, and that's what at the AI summit this week I was trying to get through is it's not only just infrastructure, but the type of infrastructure that you need is not necessarily what a traditional MSPs, and it's still quite a change for people. So a lot of this revolves around microservices. I mean, there's still a lot of networking and transport type of stuff. So,
right. Talk to me about that. This is really cool. So that basically what I was describing is sort of like the problem you're trying to solve, right? Which is like I have an enablement need for kind of collaboration over a data set or an API or something that I want to constrain to a couple of users. I want to constrain it to an organization, something like that. And I want to embed it some way in my AI workflow, either via chat or via my development process or in my actual products, right? And you're saying, number one, the way that infrastructure is put together right now is not particularly coherent, right? It's kind of, you got to bolt a bunch of stuff together, plus the infrastructure kind of layer specifically for MCP experiences, so that users like me can get that outcome, is not the same as, like, say, your regular infrastructure setup that you might need if you're an app developer or something else.
Right. Like, these things do not run on Windows Server. They don't run on Ubuntu. I mean, you can, but like a lot of the traditional operating systems that a lot of companies have used for their applications in the past, it's a little bit different today. And we've talked about it many times, but even the CEO of Microsoft, the whole death of the application or whatever he said, his point was that's an entire industry as far as like, Microsoft Dynamics and doing integrations and things like that. And with tools like this, MCP, et cetera, that's going to change it's going to change the game completely. And I don't think that your traditional Windows servers are going to go away necessarily anytime soon. But we saw it with Microsoft 365, or at the time Office 365, Exchange servers, DAGs, SharePoint servers, that all moved to the cloud. So I see this as, there are a lot of parallels with however many years ago people moving to the cloud and where we're at with AI. So I think this is going to be a big part of what people should be trying to figure out right now.
Well, that's exciting, mate. Watch this space. I can help you with your website.
I'm super excited.
I'll help you with your website and the pretty stuff, and you can do all the hard work. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's really cool. So before we jump off this topic, like, is your vision sort of that you would be able to, it would be like for semi-technical or technical people to be able to enable that kind of use case I described? Or would you be more in the enterprise, which is like, all right, you've got a bunch of effectively incoming things for AI that you like, AI LLM operating engines that you have running across your business now, whether it's agentic or whether it's like embedded in some other tool. And the main thing is you need to manage permissions, risk, infrastructure in a kind of in a consistent, scalable way. Like, is it a consumer dev tool, or is it like a enterprise thing, or do you reckon maybe both?
Yeah, well, I've gone through several iterations on the idea and direction. Lately, I've focused on centering around multi-tenancy. And, I was talking about managed services providers. So their job is to manage technology for other companies. So the idea is, at least at the moment, to have, still technical people that are familiar with just your like basic foundational technologies, but so that they can run these things for whether it's internal or for their clients without having to deal with all of this DevOps and programming. I mean, it's such a combination of different skill sets required to set all this up. So that's my goal, is to make it easy for people. Tom, you were talking about, so the Polygon, massive, everything that you're trying to do there, it's the same as what Anthropic and OpenAI have rolled out with their connectors. So if you use those products, you see down at the bottom says manage connectors, and then they have a little catalog. So Tom, I don't see Polygon or Massive on the list for either of those, but they do have, some of their big announcements, I guess, lately have been around like PitchBook, I don't know, Teamwork, some of these, and these are all paid, not all of them, but I think a lot of these are paid services. And we've talked a lot about how the structure of the internet, the model of how the internet works is going to change, or is already changed. So I've noticed, like in ChatGPT, it has started recommending some of these paid connectors.
Right.
Like if I'm chatting, it'll say, it seems like you could use this PitchBook app. Well, so that's kind of, I don't know what deal they have on the back end or how you get in these catalogs, but that's what's happening, is it would be paid services recommended through your chats.
Can you open that? Can you show me? Is that what you're looking at? I'm looking for it here. Web or desktop extensions. Every time you open up your Claude, I'm like, Jesus Christ, you have a lot of MCPs. servers.
And then you see a bunch of errors flying all over the place.
Errors and all sorts of stuff.
Um,
Metabase is cool. I didn't know they had that. That's cool.
yeah. So this is ChatGPT. You've heard me complain about how you have to code your MCP servers a certain way to work with OpenAI. Well, I believe that's changed a little bit lately. You can enable dev mode. So you see that now I have like an orange box that says developer mode. So that's given me a lot more flexibility in the type of MCPs. And I don't do a lot with OpenAI, so you can see some of the test. Like there's our build vault MCP server. I can add that in ChatGPT. So yeah, Tom, OpenAI's got it. It's a little bit hidden. So you have to go to this plus button. Over here on the right side, they have a list. So you can get there that way, but not to the catalog, I guess. So I just hit deep research, and then that gives you a list of the connectors that you can add. And then if you go into that, they have browse connectors, and they have a little catalog here. So with the exception of Gmail, I think all of these are paid services.
Oh, you mean paid services as in the app is a subscription, something that's a subscription.
Right. So I can add...
Not a paid like connector, effectively. It's like, oh, I'm going to take over the abstraction. So for example, it's not like there's a paid connector thing, which I guess you could do with the GPT apps once they launch them, which would be like, this is a market data connector and I manage the costs, or like put a wrapper over on top of like the APIs that I might want to use, which might include Polygon plus some other ones, package it up and then like sell it as a more effective connector, right?
Yeah, you could.
Yeah. We're interested to see how this works with the apps that they're launching, or how, when they launch those. Actually, that's something I really want to test, is that Next.js and the Vercel guys launched like a ChatGPT starter app. So you can launch it, like muck around and start building like ChatGPT embedded apps with a starter app, which looks really cool. Yeah, okay. That's rad. I have used some of these in context. Like I've used the HubSpot one for like just querying like, all right, sales reports, or like, pipeline, projections, that sort of stuff. It's not great. It keeps picking up the wrong things. Like I think you need, for any large data sets, and this is the problem I had with the Polygon one and these connectors, is like for any large data sets, you need kind of like a next step interface, almost like an artifact, where you could say, all right, give me the schema. For example, in that case, I was like, all right, give me the projections of like, deals closing over the next, 3 months, whatever. It brought the wrong pipeline back. So it was like saying that the total contract value across everything was like 1% of the value that it should have been, because it was looking at the wrong things. It just happened to be in a different format that looked like a deal pipeline. So there was no way, like I couldn't curate the query enough for it to be really useful. I feel like it's just like all of these are just like, here is a fire hose. And you're like, I want to drink from like a water fountain. And they're like, here's the fire hose.
No, and I mean, once you get into creating workflows, and we'll talk about skills, I think you can control that much better. AI is great with examples. So the more examples you can give it, the better. But, to your point, like, if you're using it through a chat interface, it's a pain in the ass to every time paste in, make sure it comes out in this format. So,
which is a lot of people's experience of AI that are not developers. Like that is what their experience is, right? So like curating that experience as a developer seems to be like the most important thing you can do, which we've talked about a lot, which is effectively context engineering. But in this context, in this scenario, it's like try and build something that has some sort of wrapper around the request that is more intelligent. That was my experience of trying to use these connectors anyway. And then some of them are just kind of half baked, like the Figma one. I'm like, Christ, why won't someone listen to me? I want to design things. God, those shares.
No, you're exactly right.
It's still tanking. I'm like, it's weighing down my portfolio, and it's like it's really getting on my nerves, and I'm just hating on Figma.
Well, you're exactly right. There's so much variation, and people are still learning. I mean, new technology, people are still figuring out what works and what doesn't. I mean, we talked about code mode, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and a little bit about like context rot, and how a lot of these MCP servers are overloading the context window before you even start chatting with it. And I mean, here's a good example. I don't know exactly how much this is, but Atlassian, their Jira connector is like however many tools that is, I think is too many. So you hear some people say some of these MCP servers should be one tool. So I don't know. There's varying perspectives there, and people are still figuring it out.
Basically, I wanted to just take us through what these guys have released recently. Move this bad boy out of the way. Also, quick update on my way there, side quest. This Grok code fast model continues to boom in OpenRouter. Remember we talked about it a while back? Yeah, people seem to be loving this model, like this coding model. Kilocode, Klein, Rucode, just absolutely crushing it. So I don't know, maybe we should really do a deep dive into that for some reason. Absolutely going for it. All right, cool.
Yeah, I know a while ago, I really questioned it. It's like, are people really going to use Grok in their business? I heard somebody this week say that they were trying to get in touch with sales people at Grok.
At XAI.
Yeah, XAI.
All right. What I wanted to talk through is a couple of things. So LangChain, the guys at LangChain have released a range of different things over the past sort of 2 weeks. There's the general uplift and sort of launch of V1, which they're calling V1, which is basically an update to a bunch of the middleware. Making my summary is that basically it's sort of like abstracting away some components to make it a little bit easier to use, whilst also still maintaining configurability and sort of like lower level kind of access to the lower level primitives in the different packages. Then they've also released a bunch of things into LangSmith. LangSmith is their cloud-hosted monitoring, logging, tracing, and cloud agent hosting toolkit. Sorry about the zooms. Which previously was called LangGraph Cloud. Now I believe it's just called LangSmith Cloud. I don't know. They keep changing their names. Anyway, it's where you host your agents. We have a couple of agents deployed here that we have demoed on the show. Here it is. LangGraph platform is now LangSmith deployment, and LangGraph Studio is now LangSmith Studio. Thanks, guys. We have a couple of agents here. These are the agents that are running deployments. These are our deployment versions. We've got some of them on the vault. What I want to talk through and maybe chat about is some of the stuff that I have not dived into properly enough is this datasets and experiments and annotation queue. We'll get to that in a second, but maybe I'll talk you through what I'm going to do with it, and then I can do a deep dive demo maybe next week or the week after once I'm finished with it. But this thing, which is Agent Builder, is what they released recently. And it's a no-code agent builder. I created an email assistant earlier, and a lot of it uses I'll just go to the documentation, we can check it out. A lot of it uses the primitives and some of the UI components, and a lot of the things that we have seen these guys build into these demo apps that we've seen them release over time, like the Deep Agent, the open source sort of coding agentic toolkit, the OpenSWE model. All of these kind of concepts they're trying to unify into products that now they're going to start releasing, which is interesting. It's not something I thought that they would lean heavily into. I thought they would stay more in the dev only space, but maybe that's not the case, which is really cool to see. And this is the documentation here. Basically, it's an agent builder that is not dissimilar to, say, in the way that the user experiences it, to some of those other agentic builders that we've profiled, but they have a bunch of pre-built triggers. So these are some of the pre-built things you can have. And then there's got agents, all sub-agents. All of it is basically built on top of LangGraph. So it's more robust and you can achieve a lot more. The best thing about it is it's actually used natural language. So it's sort of like a vibe code almost kind of experience for someone like me who's not as good at some of these things, whereas compared to, say, you, Cameron. And then you can actually access the agent, right?
Yeah. Well, we've talked about foreseeing the just-in-time software, if you want to call it that. I think this is one of the closest representations of that I've seen so far.
Yeah, I think the cool thing, and I was talking about this about, say, AI Studio's deep integration with like a Google Cloud, and then you see it with Replit and some of these other platforms where it's really strongly connected to a robust kind of back-end and front-end hosting environment where you can actually build the apps, as opposed to something like V0, which is just not quite there yet, or Lovable, which is you just don't have as much down in the weeds kind of access, where you couldn't really go to market with something really robust really quickly. These are all their pre-built connectors that they've got in here. No doubt they're going to expand this out once it comes out out of private beta. So what it actually looks like in practice is you just come in here and you click new agent, and then you can describe the agent you would like. You can check out the available integrations here, all the different tools, so Gmail, etc. And this has obviously taken some of the pre-built like agent templates that they've demoed and kind of like productizing them. I'll talk you through the email assistant, but I'll show you the, say, linear board reporter. Here we go. Create this linear board reporter for me. What's cool is then they have like a user turn where they say, all right, let's talk about what you actually need in there. Similar to deep research, right? So it's sort of like what tools do I have? Let's check it out. Great. All right. I can see I've got the linear tools. I'm going to ask you a few questions. And then they put you through this kind of customization, curation process. I want updates every day. I want all my teams. I want all of the above items, and my agent should deliver it to me everywhere. My updates everywhere. All right, cool. So that's the curation, customization. Perfect. Just one more quick question. Daily reports should be messages in this chat. All right, cool. And then it goes off and builds the agent. And then you've got this sort of like, it's like a visualization of the workflow, which is different to say how the actual agent is working, right? But it's interesting they kind of like built this out as a kind of like a UI experience. Mm-hmm. Now all of this might change, right? Because these guys are in the throes of building this out. Then you can say, all right,
I think it's important to point out in their documentation or their blog post, they specifically, and I think it's underlined, said this is not a like workflow builder. And yeah. I read that as kind of throwing shade at OpenAI and the way they rolled out theirs. It's similar, but very different in the approach.
Yeah, I think they probably needed to do that to show the data flow, right? But they're very specific about that. And they're also specific about it, I think, because LangChain is very opinionated around their graph philosophy, right? Mm-hmm. And OpenAI has specifically said publicly that they think that is the wrong approach for agents. So they have like a bit of a beef, you could say. All right, cool. This is my agent. I can connect it to linear. I can create the agent here. And then you get this experience here, which is like you can visualize, you can see the chat, you can test it, and then you can customize some of the components here. You can see like the instructions that it gets. It's the executive summary, data collection, what you should do, calling specific tools. Here's the toolbox. These are the triggers. I can add other triggers if I want. Triggers from my email, triggers from Slack. That is quite cool. And then the process, so the executive summary issues, how it should like summarize them, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty great. And then the report formatting, all within the one kind of instruction set. That's pretty rad. Then you also get this visualization tool. Now, I might switch over to the Gmail one, the email assistant that I made before. Use the chat interface. Here we go. I can chat with my email assistant. Okay. I can go edit my agent. And this is the example kind of email assistant agent. I went through the similar kind of process. I hooked it up to my email account. This is a slightly more complicated one in the visualizations you can see on the side here, right? So it's got like, these are all the tools that I get, notifications, and then a sub agent, which then analyzes that. Pretty cool. Email content analyzer, here we go. And I can go and then edit the toolbox here, which is my sub agent. And then it reads the content. I can even add more tools if I want. That's nice. So you send me an email that might be like, hey, is the podcast show is up. It's like up. I can then take that and then customize it with a sub agent and post it to LinkedIn potentially. And these are the categories. So basically in the onboarding flow, I said, you're an intelligent email assistant for a podcast host and a LangChain ambassador. Your role is to help manage incoming emails by analyzing them, drafting replies, organizing them, and providing summaries. Great. And then I asked it got this pretty much right the first time. I only had to do like a few kind of, tweaks and stuff. There's a bunch of stuff in here that it probably wouldn't get exactly right. So I'd probably have to curate it over time. What I like is like, I can just come in here and like modify and update this agent pretty easily. And then the output format comes to me. Cool. Let's go save it. And then we can use the agent. I might return to the editor. What else is in here? Anything else you want to see in here, Cameron, while I'm clicking around?
No, not there. I believe you can actually chat. So say you've had this running for a couple weeks, through your interactions with the front end or the UI, can also modify the design that way, right? Or there's some type of like feedback loop where it will improve, or you can improve it. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I haven't found that yet. But potentially review required. Let's check that out. So I'm just creating, I want to see what it looks like when I subagent that creates urgent replies to messages. I want to see what this looks like here. It's basically a subagent is only ever off the primary agent. Got it. And that you add them to the toolbox, right? So it's a relatively simplified kind of graph. Push this back up here. And if I can do this, what happens then? That doesn't make any sense anyway. All right, cool. Let's save this. Agent save. We can use the agent. Am I going to get any, is it going to summarize all of the sex toy shops that I subscribe to? Wouldn't that be fun? You're like, Tom, the results are in of your piles kind of evaluation. Yep, you've got piles.
That's why I'm always so nervous, not because of sex toys necessarily, but I'm always like nervous to share my screen.
No shame.
You never
know. Shame at the build. No shame at the build at all, my friend. I can see the emails are very large. Let's get a better view by passing them as JSON. All right, here we go. Here's the summary. Yep. Halloween costumes are for sale, promotional and marketing. 3,000. All right, not bad. Okay. Professional, technical, LangChain updates, SASTA. Sweet. There's probably, okay, I can get. What I would love is a summary of every single piece of information I get from my school, collated and put into a calendar that is referencing each of my children. Like that would be something that this agent would be. That would change my life if this agent could do that. And I think it probably could. It gives me the updates. All right. Cool. Time-sensitive stuff. AI Engineer Code Summit discount is expiring. I did check that out. All right. That's kind of cool. Yeah, actually. Should I get details on the specific files? All right. So that's the experience. And you were saying that there's like potentially some sort of way for it to be like published or you can then look at it.
Well, I was talking about being able to modify, like if the output's not right, just being able to chat with that UI to change it. I thought I read that somewhere. I didn't do that myself, but that's one of my questions out of the gate is around like where.
It's here is what you're talking about. So here's a test chat, right? So I'm editing the agent and then here's a chat. Let's test it. You can create a new thread, right? Got it. But where could I chat with this agent? Let's check that out. Maybe that's a feature that's coming. Sorry, what were you going to say?
One of the first questions, I messed around with this a little bit. You showed the deployments tab, and that's where when we deploy agents through LangGraph or whatever, LangSmith Cloud, LangGraph Cloud, they're essentially Docker containers running under that deployments tab. But when you create these agents with Agent Builder, they're not deployed that way. So I know this is like day one, ground zero beta. So maybe that will change, but I'm curious.
That's really cool.
Like where is it actually running? How do you access it externally? Like you're not going to, the idea is not to log into langsmith.com and run this. So how do you run it, through whatever UI you're used to?
So that's the tools, right? So it's like user notification and in the setup. So I guess, stepping back a second, you're right. Deployment of these is not currently implemented by the looks of it into like the actual deployment environment. There may be like an export into Studio and then you could like customize it more and get down into the code, I assume. This is like literally beta preview. When you're building the tool, you can get it to contact you in the tools that it has, right? So when you're building the agent, it's like, all right, where do you want your updates? Like I was doing that linear one. It's like, all right, well, I want it in this chat, which is just in here. I want it in my email. I want it in Slack. And those are the only connectors they've got in here or out of the box, right? So the assumption would be like, I build these here and manage them, but I only interact with them, say, via Slack, which is pretty common for, say, agents like Devon, for example, where you're like, all right, or like some people just use Codex via Slack, or it could be like in a linear, I could at my agent name in a linear task comment, and then it would pick it up, for example. But
does it work that way? You're saying that's the idea, or you can do that now?
You can do that now, but on a limited number of connectors. So in this kind of period of time, the connector, and there we go. Got it. You saved. You can, okay, it's got like a thread summary of different agents. And then if I come in here, I can see, If I go to the docs, maybe it makes more sense. So the supported tools, these are the supported tools that it has. So you can configure it to say, all right, well, when it's time for you to get, I don't know, an interrupt where you need to get a user's approval, configure it with a tool to go and send that message to a user via a channel. So let's go through another setup and we can see it in real time.
Would you be able to try that? Like if it emails you, reply back to the email or?
Yeah, why don't we try it out? I'll just go through an example. You can see what I mean. So this is Slack Summarizer, search triggers, tools. What else does it have? It's got the Exa search, Gmail, triggers, read the Slack channel history. Cool. Chain, give that a try. Next. On a schedule, manually when I ask, and every time something is posted, how would you like to receive the summaries, right? A private Slack message. So this is sort of it. It's like, where should I get the summaries? In this case, it's just a summary thing, right? But you can define like in this pre-build, how do you want this agent to interact with you effectively? I can say in this chat, I could post it to a specific Slack channel, which might be private to me. All right, so summarize every single Slack channel in a private message to me for the day, for example, or a private Slack message. I might just click all of them. And what type of content or topics should we focus on? Only everything in the channel will be fine. And then, well, that's cool. All right, daily. Give me a daily summary. All right, I can only do one. Actually, that's pretty cool. You got confused. All right, sweet. Now, so that's an example, right, of the input output. At least in this iteration of it. I can imagine they'll probably want to set up like a connected like agent inbox experience as well.
Yep.
Like you have done. What is your Slack user ID? All right, I probably won't do that live if that's all right, but we can skip this, et cetera, et cetera. You want to go through and we could say, all right, the email assistant, you're like, all right, where does it change? If I say, I want the draft replies when appropriate, special handling guidelines, high priority, low priority draft. So, all right, let's chat with it. If I use the agent, draft a reply to the urgent emails from today. See how it goes with that. Waiting. You have to be really good at small talk, I find, when you're demoing AI products, right?
What to fill in between?
Yeah, that's the one. It's like we're back to dial up. All right. It's read my Gmails. Here is the output. Too large. It's too large. I do get a lot of emails and they're mostly garbage. So we'll see. Just looking for something. All right. Here's found that are potentially urgent. This AI Engineer Code Summit for the discount for a ticket and the LangChain newsletter potentially. October newsletter. These emails. It's got the content, discount code, etc. E2B feedback. All right, that picked that up and identifying which ones. And then it should draft the emails in my inbox, which I can go and then open and see. So I'll do that over here. What's it doing now? There we go. It was a very large output. All right, LangChain 1, urgency level low. Engineer Code Summit, urgency level is high. Medium importance is the key points. Requires response. No direct response needs, but requires a decision. Recommended action. Evaluate, does the November schedule work for you? If not interested, no reply to sender needed either way. Okay, what's it going to do? It said priority ranking, 1, 2, 3, action items by the end of the day, decide on this Code Summit registration, then do this week, next 2 to 3 days. All right. Only one email requires a direct response. This tells you how interesting I am. I've only got one urgent email for the day. Based on my analysis of today's email, I only found one requires a draft E2B feedback request from Vasek. Okay, let me reply that draft to E2B, to Vasek from E2B. Here we go. So everybody's going to see his email now. That's great. All right. Now, that's done it in the chat. Did it do it in my email as well? Let's see. I can't see it in my email here. Accept this as a draft. Maybe I need to do that and potentially let's check the actual way that it's configured to see if I configured that correctly. But I don't know. This is pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. It's awesome. It's just need to, well, do you have any idea on the actual release? Because I don't know if we mentioned, we only have access to this because of Tom's participation as a LangChain ambassador. Do you have any idea on the actual release date or time frame that other people will be able to use this?
Not yet. I think it's not just LangChain ambassadors. They're getting feedback from a bunch of different customers, enterprises, all sorts. I don't know when it will be released. I would say pretty soon, based on the cadence of releases these guys go through. They would probably they probably need to expand it out across like the actual like LangChain kind of tool packages and expand it dramatically, right? Because it's obviously pretty constrained based on what we know LangChain can do. LangChain, LangGraph. What I'd really want to know is like, I guess this is the feedback they're looking for, right? So what I really want to know, all right, that's pretty cool. Oh, the emails are in here. I want to see if I've got this yet in my actual email. All right, sweet. So here you go. I'll just check to see if there's nothing sexy or naughty in my email before I show it to the internet. You see my email here?
A lot of drafts. Oh, I guess you're in the drafts folder.
I'm in the drafts folder. So here it is. All right, here is what it developed. Looking for some feedback. Saw you were playing with EDB. This is actually just a generic kind of feedback form. Thanks for reaching out. I'd be happy to share my thoughts on EDB. I've been impressed with what you've been building. Look, I really have. I'll fill out the questionnaire today as someone working extensively on LangChain, blah, 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 blah. And then it even did a follow-up request for a guest spot on the podcast. All right, I'm just going to send that to him now because that's quite helpful. Sick. All right, so that's the end-to-end flow. This is the kind of thing that they're looking for in terms of feedback on this, right? What I really want to know is like, based on that agent, and my summary, I'll just zoom back out. Here we go. Draft email review required. I clicked on that before, so that's why it stopped there. And so if I click that off, then you can just quickly, that's actually really cool. I quite like that UI, which is like literally click off, or on if you want to quickly add like user review, human in the loop kind of additions. That's actually quite nice, I think, because then you can just browse through and say, yeah, at that point, like I've been using it for a while, at that point, do this. So we could try again if you want, and then see but it will obviously connect up and just make the drafts. That is rad. And I went through and started trying to deploy the email assistant kind of agent, right? With the one that we've seen Harrison and a bunch of other people talk about. It was too complex. It was taking too long. I just stopped. Whereas now, if they can expand the agent universe around this, then this will open up that outer core kind of use case or user group that they define, which is like their core is like developers, agent engineers, developers, and then like basically what they call citizen agent developers. Cool, man. You should get in there.
The other thing that I was wondering about, and Tom, before we started here, I was sitting here thinking, Tom hasn't even touched this. How's he going to demo it? And it's because we share, you see the build account. So we both have access to that, but I don't see your agents. And then I've created a couple.
Okay.
And you don't see mine. So that's interesting, especially when you're talking about enterprise or within a business environment. And not that you'd want to roll this out today anyways, but how's that going to look from a like enterprise perspective and managing all these things, all these different agents?
Well, no doubt they have a plan for that. I assume they did that very on purpose because the starter tools are very personal. So for example, if they had have shared it and then I set up my email assistant and you had access to my email, then that's not great, right? That's a massive, not that I have anything, sex toy related that I wouldn't want to share with you, my good friend. It's more because anything, and we do this like with work, it's like, and you would have seen this, anything that has a vector where a user can change another user's email address is just completely like off the cards, because every kind of attack vector that someone wants to get into someone else's like account is an email-based thing these days. So I can understand that, right?
Yeah, I agree. And that's what, at first I was like, well, what can I actually set up? Because I didn't want to give Sketchy Tom here my access to all my stuff.
I thought it was Big Tom. The other thing,
Big Tom, so many nicknames.
So I quickly want to touch on this, basically annotation queues and datasets and experiments. Now, and then there's the prompt playground, right? I really want to dive into this more effectively. So they've got like this prompt hub. There's so many cool things in here that the guys at LangChain, they've built. It's not something that you can really that you really dive into very easily. And now I've got a use case where I'm going to start diving into some of this stuff where I really want to optimize and track the performance iteratively over time across a very large data set of an absolute bucket of prompts, like a lot of different prompts. some of them are also multi-turn. And so it's like a pretty chunky piece of work that I basically wouldn't know how to do unless I knew about this part, like unless I knew about LangSmith. So I know weights and biases has equivalent ones, but I'm really excited to dive in here. Have you ever used any of this stuff? Like,
Yeah, a little bit.
management?
In fact, just recently, so I set up a MCP server that uses LangChain Hub or whatever, but you can access the prompts, create your own prompts, and I had Claude Code use the MCP server to create its own experiments, evaluate them, and then it was like, like full loop, go back and then modify the code and then run the experiment again. And then it can see that information directly. So I've been trying to do it more automatically or programmatically, I guess. But there's still quite a bit, to create your own examples. That's still a good amount of work to do it manually. So I don't know, Tom, what do you think? Is this the experiments in the phase of development? Do you think that's something you would do towards the end? Like start with one model or one prompt that's pretty good, and then start testing whatever you've created with multiple different models? And is that at the tail end before you go to rolling it out, or any ideas there based on what you've...
Yeah, so the way that the guys talk about it, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, so in here, like all these docs are great. Like the way that the guys describe it when you're thinking about building AI applications is there's offline, online, and user, right? Where offline is you are building your application and you have a data set and you're iterating towards some sort of experience that, is just a referential data set or some sort of experiment where you're like, I think I can get to this outcome using some sort of agentics, or either agentic or just like single API call, whatever solution. Then there's online, which is like, I have a task where I've already launched my application and I need to iterate or optimize. And that's where I'm at. It's a live online application and I need to set up the online referential evaluation data set so that I can take what is happening and benchmark the performance against basically an optimization set that I'm trying to kind of refine across a whole set of different things. That's also the evaluation kind of experimentation scenario where, you're looking at, maybe you think you can get away with your use case downgrading to like a mini version of ChatGPT, a mini model, or you think, Haiku might be able to execute some components of an application experience, but you're not sure. So then you optimize an experiment within that framework, either live or against a referential data set. So you can experiment live with existing customers, trace the experience and the outcome. And then there's the user level evals, right? Which is basically like an evaluation and an experimental framework, or like basically tracing and logging around those components where it's an actual user piece of feedback. And you can then upweight that into some sort of data set that you can use that will go into your kind of versions of offline or online, right? Those are the three domains. I'm at the middle one, but I also realized that for our application architecture to really deliver on this component part of what we're building, I also will need the next stage of that, because we're constantly generating a batch of data and there's no real high quality kind of AI pipeline for that data to come in, be annotated, be curated into a way that will optimize the experience for both individual users, user accounts, and the whole application. So yeah, that's why I'm kind of looking into it, and I'm going to go deep on this, I think, for the next couple of weeks. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And again, I mean, that's something, just like 1,000 things. I'm like, yeah, I need to spend more time, because it's been mostly experimentation level on my side. And Tom, I don't know if it's worth, kind of related to the new releases, they have the agent insights. So that is related to the experiments. I don't know if you've used that at all.
Do you want to I haven't. Do you want to show it? I don't know. You've got more data in your account that you can actually kind of dive into, and we can just play with it live if you want.
Yeah, I ran one. We set up the build vault on our website partially to have example data that we can show.
Yeah, that'd be sick. I'd love to see it and play with it. I didn't get around to looking at it. I was playing with the agent one, to be honest. I'm just thinking about all of the different use cases for that email agent now, because one of the things that I really want to do is just get the build Vault insights where we mention any of these products or packages or anything, and then reach out to those people and say, hey, would you like to come onto the show? And it's just like something that a producer would do, right? I'm just like, and I haven't been bothered, like, just like to build it, right? I'm like, I go and build that agent after the show. And then everyone from Vercel will come on and no one from Cloudflare. And all the LangChain guys, once they're finished with their crazy releases, maybe some of those guys as well.
So this is LangSmith. The project that I have selected here is the backend process that we demoed it here, I believe, at some point, and it downloads the transcript of the YouTube video, and then it does a bunch of data enrichment, summarization, etc. So I have that process. I'm running through LangSmith so that you can see every step, what it's doing, where it throws errors, where it takes a long time to run. So here's an example. I'm under the tracing projects, and you can see there's like thousands and thousands of traces here. So if you go to this Insights tab, just so you can see you can set up a new Insights report. So you can basically, kind of like you were showing with the agent builder in natural language, you now have an agent that can run through and evaluate the traces, because it's so much information. So it is a little bit difficult to navigate sometimes. So I basically just said, where does this process throw errors? Where's it inefficient? I don't know if my prompt is in here. So you give it a little bit of context, like expected output and what it is exactly. And then it comes back with, again, I haven't spent a ton of time going through this, but pretty rich information, I believe. So here it's telling me I had a bunch of errors around null episode IDs. And then it gives you, you can just continue drilling down further and further.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is actually going to be a really valuable tool.
So the runs is a percentage of the total, right? What it's looking at. And then you get like latency by type. It's effectively just giving you a summarization and analyzing the component parts and putting it into a report. Does it give you action things off the back of it? Like if you click on them? Summary prompt. Okay, yeah. Insight overview. That's cool. You can actually see the summary prompt of the agent. Did you see that?
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so that's what I wrote initially. I said, here's what it is. And I don't know how long this took to run, because maybe it says somewhere here, but or even how much it costs to run this, because you do have to put in your OpenAI or Anthropic key. So I haven't checked. Potentially a lot of data to sort through. But so yeah, I'm excited to apply that more. This is just a quick example, a quick test. But
what about, so say observability gaps. Can you click on that one? 19.3% down the bottom. I'm just trying to understand some of these metrics. Stage less success. Successful traces lacked stage metadata or step counts, and the instrumentation is complete. When you click on it, what does it actually give you from there? Is just the summaries, and then you can click the traces and it'll expand each component. Trace completed successfully. All right. But it doesn't like give you some sort of ranking or like, run. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Not by default, but there's so many ways to drill down and view this information.
Yeah. That's cool.
It actually reminds the kind of related to, you were showing the agent builder, and I said it doesn't show up under deployments. I would have expected to see traces. So if you were to go back to your agent builder, I don't think it creates the traces in LangSmith.
No, it's not there. Not there yet, but it may be.
Yeah.
This seems like it's like a self-contained kind of thing. You can see the threads, but you can't see the traces, right? Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right. Do you want to do Claude Skills? Or do you want to leave it for another day?
Yeah, we can talk about Claude Skills, and we'll just hit it high level, and hopefully I said I'll do a demo, like record a demo and get in the weeds here. But yeah, Claude Skills, it's really taken the internet by storm, or the AI world at least. You've probably heard a lot about it lately, and we were joking last week about how Claude has had skills, and it was actually available before they announced it, I think like a month ago. So whenever they released or announced that Claude can handle Office documents like Excel, PowerPoint, Word, PDF, I immediately was like, well, how does that work and how can I replicate that?
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks, Tom.
So in here, like, this is the skills, like a skills preview kind of like area. This is like out of the box, the default ones, and you can go and browse how that we can go and pull these up on the GitHub repo. You can then upload skills into like this is like desktop. It's just a skill.md file, and you can have it there in the desktop, and then also you can enable it in Claude Code, right? This is like this one here. Say algorithmic art. This one was pretty rad, actually. And then you can just say try it in chat. You can go and try it out. Hey, Claude, I just added some algorithmic art skill. Can you make something amazing with it? Off it goes. That's a skill. While that's loading, getting my thoughts. And then it goes and interrogates that skill, goes and checks out the skill.
And
MD
yeah, did you see
file.
It shows you the path? If you scroll back up, it says mount skills. So that's a cloud-based container. Obviously, you don't have a mount or MNT directory on your computer. So this is running in the cloud in like a, think of it like a Docker container. And so they've uploaded these MD files and these scripts. It's like a lot of the same stuff you would end up doing yourself, but it's pre-made so that it's repeatable. In the container environment, it's secure and portable is the other thing.
Yeah, so let's look at it. All right, it's created like a crystalline consciousness philosophy.md file, which is its design philosophy implemented with 5.js based on that philosophy kind of design principle. And then it's executing that in HTML, which is really cool. So it's like rendering it down as code here in this skill. And then we'll dive into once it finishes this, I can open the actual skill file and you can see why. I wanted to use this because this was creating, I want to put the build through it actually, and then we'll get it to create a poster because I was quite impressed with these ones. But this is an algorithmic exploration of thought patterns crystallizing into geometric form. Pretty cool. Blah, 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 blah. HTML, blah. Well, that's coming up. Let's come over here and check it out.
Yeah.
Effectively, agent skill, right? This is what it has in the docs. So they are discoverable capabilities defined within a skill.md file. And it's a pretty simple kind of architecture, right? It's very similar to OpenAI's agent.md kind of architecture. That's like you have agents with sub-agents and then a set of skills. And skills can be a short exposition of like an approach to something, a workflow, a method that can then also self-reference other files like code execution instructions or even code snippets and other things, right? So it's like a separation of concerns and a getting into the weeds. And then you might have agents. You might have an agent with a bunch of sub-agents, and then you have all of these skills. Maybe some of those sub-agents are mapped to skills. Some of those skills also reference other skills so that the agent can traverse this thing and not get overwhelmed when it's got like an instruction set and it tries to go and do a bunch of stuff. So it's like, all right, this instruction relates to this thing. I'm going to go and use this sub-agent and then use this skill, for example.
Exactly. Yeah, and at the base level, it's very simple, or at least seems simple, kind of like sub-agents where it's just a markdown file. And you're like,
sub-agents markdown, or like even A2A protocol from Google is just like a JSON card. It's very similar, right? It's just like, what can you do? What does this thing do? What is it? Who are you? What's your name? Etc.
Yep. Yeah. But the reason this is important and it's making such a big splash, anybody who's used even Claude Desktop, not even specific to coding tools, but you've probably noticed as the models have gotten better, they've started, you might ask for, you're creating some project and then you notice the agents, Claude Desktop, whatever, starts writing scripts rather than like it's found out how to be more efficient. And that's why this is such a big deal, because now you have the agent writing pre-made scripts, pre-made code that saves massive amounts of context. So it kind of runs in the background programmatically. And
And also
it's directly
constrain.
related to subagents. What?
Like you can constrain it, right? So it might be like, all right, well, I want you to run this in this specific way. For example, I actually didn't look at this in detail. You probably did, but like here is the skill like tree diagram. It's like you've got your basic skill, reference documentation, examples, and then a scripts folder with like, if you've got scripts you want it to run, and then also template examples, right? Template layouts of certain examples, whatever you want it to be. All of those are optional. You just need the top level file, but it's kind of like a directive approach. This is really cool, actually. So I might let you drive from here if you want, but I might just check in on the output. Oh, this is pretty cool. It actually created like a interactive HTML thing. It's pretty fun. Random, density, lots of crystals, reset. Nice. Interesting. That's not what I was expecting, actually. You can open it in Google Chrome. Yeah, okay, it's just an HTML output. The actual skill, well, before I hand over the actual skill, here they go.
Why don't you?
Claude code. This is the actual repo we were referencing, right? These are the skills here. And the skills cookbook. No. Skills, capabilities. No, it must be in here.
Sample.
Assets. Custom skills. No, that's examples.
You're in the cookbook. They actually have a different repo with the
public repository for skills. Here we go. This is much better. Thank you. We just used, here we go. These are the base ones. The canvas does no algorithmic art. I was wanting the canvas design one. I used the wrong skill. All right, this is the canvas design, and then I'll put it through the build. So this is the skill.md file. Design philosophy creation. Here we go. Very similar to the one I just ran. Critical understanding. All right. I really find it interesting reading these sorts of things where the way that they prompt Claude and how the language they use is very instructive. And I don't use language like that. I probably should. All right. So it's got the instructions is basically create your design reference and then create the canvas. And then and it's got the output kind of requirements for the canvas. It's got some fonts that it directs to use. And then the output kind of instruction is a .pdf or a PNG file alongside the design philosophy file, which is an explainer. If I just go back to Claude.
And the key here is the references. I didn't see them like in that MD file. There should be references to the scripts. And that's really all that it's doing is saying, here's where you can find the code that you can execute to do this.
I think this one's relatively simple. So it just references here, search the /./canvas fonts directory for fonts for writing text. That's an example. In the algorithmic art one that we were just in, it has templates in the generator. Right. Okay. So you can actually
the Office.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, this one's, so this one has a scripts one. So this is an artifacts builder. Scripts/artifact sh is a reference, initialization, and then scripts bundle artifact kind of instruction set. And then within there is the script components that it will run, Shadsium component like generator, right? And then the Office one, document skills here, XLS. What's that? Spreadsheet creation. Is this the one you were talking about or something else?
Right. The Office documents have some more, maybe like DocX. One of those has a whole set of scripts, I think.
Oh, yeah, DocX, here we go. Templates, scripts, and then this is a comprehensive document creation editing toolkit supporting, what is that? That's Google Docs, DocX. Oh, no. Is DocX Google Docs or that's Office?
No, that's Word. Yeah, Microsoft Word.
Microsoft. Yeah, cool. File structures here. Key structures, Word, document.xml, comment. Right. I'm going to kick this example off and then you can take over if you want. Otherwise, we can leave it there and you can come back with a better demo. But I really wanted to see what it would do with the internal canvas design, what it would do with the build to create like a poster for us. Let's try it in chat. Can you make a poster for the podcast called the build AIpod.com? Cool. All right. Going to get the branding elements, et cetera. While that's kicking off, we can go through a bit more of the documentation. What I kind of wonder about, maybe you can talk to me about what you think, is like how this, here we go. Here's the original blog post of how it actually works. this is what you're talking about here, like the agent configuration in this agent virtual machine, right? Here.
Right. Exactly. As I was reading through this, one of my first questions was, well, what makes this unique to Claude if all it is markdown files and pointers to scripts? And I don't know that this is 100% correct, but I believe it's really just about the API kind of has the logic to spin up that container. So I've replicated this different ways with outside of Claude, but I don't know that it's exactly right.
Does that mean, like, say, using it so I can't really use it in Claude Code? Like, what's the variation there? I would have thought it would be the same, right? Or is it not? Like,
you can
Claude
use
Code,
it in Claude Code,
but that's
yeah,
like
you can
local.
use it. I mean, like with like local models or open source models or something like that.
Yeah, right. Okay, this is really cool. Where is my poster? All right, so it's executing on that, doing the layouts. Let's wait until we see this. Yeah, did you want to, we can pull up the, I might just show this one is something I want to try, which relates to that code, that trading thing that we were talking about, which is here. This cookbook, which is a bit more comprehensive, right, is a Claude Skills kind of overview for financial applications, financial modeling in Excel, and it's got some pretty kind of deep, like, setup and code examples. I'll just expand that out while my poster's getting ready. It's not bad at all. It's pretty crisp.
Yeah, but that's just out of the box. So you can customize that and make it much better, right?
Well, yeah. So can I do that? That's out here. And then would I be able to edit and view the design philosophy? And it basically, the output of that is .md file. So not out of the box from here, but it wouldn't take too much customization to make that. All right. And then let me click on this.
Yeah, you can take those templates. Like, this is one of those templates, modify it in your IDE, and then re-upload the skills file. Yeah.
Actually, that might be cool. Do you want to spin through the example marketplace that you found for Claude Skills? What was that one called? Basically, we talked about all of the bunch of the things that we built out in.
Right.
I think it was, it was in the Claude sub agents
marketplace
episode. And basically, we were just riffing on stuff. And there's a marketplace for these things now, right? Or there are a bunch of them that you were talking about. Was that not related to agent skills? Was that related to something else?
It wasn't directly, but it is very related, because these skills you can publish as a marketplace. So maybe a couple weeks before the skills announcement, they announced marketplaces. So we had we were kind of bragging on ourselves, I guess, or
because I want to see, like,
thought it was interesting.
Other agent, like, basically what I want to know is, like, all right, here's the example. How are other people building out these skills? Like, what are the skill example, like, and can I go and basically hook into a bunch of these things?
So you were talking about this Claude, Dan Avila created this plugin marketplace.
Claude Code templates.
Yeah, and what we were kind of joking about is, I was surprised. I thought it was very cool to see this particular project featured in the Anthropic article, because we had created some subagents live on the podcast, and I think I uploaded like 100 subagents templates to this project, and then saw it in the Anthropic blog post. So very cool. Definitely check this out. And this is this is kind of culmination of everything we've talked about. They have MCP servers, skills. Just have to play with it. Maybe we can do a demo or get Dan to come talk about it.
I reckon it'd be awesome. We should do some more subagent stuff, I reckon, as well.
That's what I'm still trying to sort out. Where does the idea of the subagents versus skills versus, there's so many different things now. You need all of them together, but how do you most efficiently use them?
Yeah, I don't know. They have updated their developer docs on Claude. Here I'm looking at, like, how do you enable, this is back on the skills, how do you enable your agent, like specific agents with skills? And then you can also reference the code execution or, like, the container across multi-turn, like like multi-turn conversations. I need to understand this a bit better. Yeah, the skill ID, how do you actually get, yeah, cool. Like customized skills, how you share skills potentially, either in this case, it would be across a team, right? A team of people using Claude Code, for example.
Yep. Yeah, and I basically forked the demo repo, and then I added a marketplace. And actually, now that I'm saying it, I don't remember if it worked or not, but I think you can go in there and just like / marketplaces and then add the repo, and it will automatically import these different skills. So that's the idea.
Have you tried the skill builder? Is it any good? Like the prompt skill builder?
Yeah, I've actually used it a few times, but not for anything that I'm able to that I want to show here on the live on the internet. But
live on the internet, because it's in the actual
I meant to
area. I want to actually, I might just bring it up because there's a skill creator right here, skill MD.
Tom, I was talking about the tie back to the agent universe that you had kicked off, and maybe there's a way to tie that back, or
yeah. So let's give it a try. I want to see this skills. Oops. All right. So we have a skill creator, right? Which is like, this is a guide for creating effective skills. The skills should be used when users want to create new skills or update an existing skill that extends Claude's capabilities with specialized knowledge, specialized workflows, tool integrations, domain expertise, and bundled resources. Okay. What I would really love, so reference material and documentation. Okay. So if you remember, Agent Universe is this app on here. Have you done any work on this?
I did a little bit last week, and I
now
probably went backwards because your concept was the flow. You're going the direction of the what's that called? The Flow SDK. I was getting confused with that piece because I haven't used it before. So I started, at least for the moment, creating like markdown files and stuff that's easier to look at.
Did you ruin my styling? I think this looks like it's been, yeah.
No, I didn't deploy it. I don't think.
Anyway, well, something's broken. Anyway, basically what this is like a marrying up of the industry codes and their basic size to an assessment of basically, like, you look at an industry, this residential construction, you look at the distribution of types of firms, revenue per employee, total employment, the degree, your ability to disrupt it using an agentic solution. And then the idea was I wanted to kind of basically create like an agentic organization, org designer, where you could map out the value creation process that a company goes through. This is very, very terrible because it's like very hard to create on the fly, kind of like a very large, complex, multi-step kind of workflow diagram and actually have it be mapped out easily. There's all these auto layout kind of algorithms that I'm not very good at customizing. So it's my lack of front end skills, right? And then the whole idea is you could then take this and go generate me for any one of those kind of industry sectors, generate me a set of agents that I could use within that kind of this workflow. Or like, it's almost like a value creation map, which is like a customer journey, and then the way that a company creates value for each of these different customers, suppliers, like how it engages with people, platforms it uses. So it would be a cool way. One thing that I don't necessarily have is like an industry researcher that could give me a sense of basically what I really want to know is for every single one of these codes. So you take residential building construction, what is the distribution of different types of occupations within each of these, right? I wonder if that's something that a Claude sub-agent could do, where it could give me an assessment of each individual industry's like occupation distribution. That could be one. Another one could be like we have to think about what skills actually are. Skills are output. They're not analysis, right? Or they're not often analysis, like an agent. An agent calls skills to execute on something, correct? So right. Skill in this context might be industry analysis. And then I could potentially enable it with specific data sets. Or what else? I don't really have a good way to define this AI disruption score.
Yeah, because the NAICS codes are pretty high level, right? I mean, there's like I don't know what the lingo is, but like sub industries and domains within each one of those NAICS codes, right? So
yeah, each code basically is, if you look at this one, it's like 23611. The first 2 digits, there's a hierarchy effectively. There's like high level, medium level, low level. Here it is, yeah. Sector, subsector, industry group, industry, and yeah, whatever that last one is. Yeah, national industry, right? Let's see. Can I generate skills from Claude Desktop, or do I have to do it in code? Do it in the
yeah,
IDE?
do you have the skill builder? It should be
there.
listed in there by default. I don't know if I've tried that yet, but yeah.
Capabilities. Here are the skills. Artifacts builder, MCP builder. Ooh, that's cool. I didn't see this one. Did you see that?
The MCP builder? Yeah, I haven't actually, surprisingly, I have not tried that one yet.
That is surprising. Well-designed tools used when building MCP servers to integrate with it. All right, I'm going to pivot this then. That's great because that basically might solve my problem with Massive.
I'm pretty sure it's going to spin up a local MCP server though.
Can you build? Yeah, here we go. Can you build? This isn't skill builder, but it's using one of the skills. Options, trading, specific MCP server using the Polygon Massive API docs. See what it does. That'll be cool, actually. This will either be cool or it'll be cut from the show. The REST API is what I needed to use because I don't have access to the WebSockets one. Let's see what that does. While I'm looking at that, I might look at the documentation of this MCP component, and then we can go get out.
I thought the skills they have by default in Cloud Desktop were all the same that they have in that repo, but apparently not, because I don't see the skill creator by default, but it looks like I can add it.
Yeah, document skills, internal comms, MCP builder. MCP builder is the one I'm using here. Do you want to get the skill builder up and running, and then I'll just talk through this? So this one, for creating high quality MCP protocols, that's great. And this is the workflow, deep research and planning, okay? It'll go through and build for workflows, not just the endpoints, build thoughtful, high-impact workflow tools, consolidate related operations, e.g. schedule events, both checks availability and creates events. Tools that complete tasks, optimize for limited context, error messages, natural task subdivisions. Okay, this is going to be really cool. There's an error. Maybe it thinks it's got the context and it doesn't. That could be funny. And then it studies the documentation for Python and TypeScript, exhaustively studies the API. I'd love to basically generate these and then compare them to existing MCP servers to see like how good they are. Comparatively good. Sweet. And it's just going to generate it for me. I wonder if the output, what's the output? So test and build serve as a long-running processes as a wait. And will I get the actual output so that then I could pass it to someone like MCP Central? Not actually just host it, right? One-click deploy host. That would be really cool, actually.
Yep.
Doesn't this mean the internet's just going to fill up with all sorts of random shit? Because like effectively the cost of generating this sort of stuff would go to zero. I'm surprised that hasn't happened already.
Yeah.
Like why isn't GitHub?
You don't feel that way about the internet today?
Yeah, as I was saying that out loud, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing you've ever said. All right, let's see. Off it goes. This is great. All right, this is really cool. For example, when I was using the MCP server that these guys had built in their demo application, they don't have individual option contract tool calls in their MCP server. I'm like, well, how do I go and get that? It was like ages. I'm like, oh, give me the options chain. That's sweet. I wonder what else it's got in here.
Yeah, and if you're building the MCP server or modifying it, don't forget about MCP prompts and MCP resources. So those can be very helpful. It's not just tools.
So what do you mean?
Well, I don't think it's going to interrupt your run here. Can you click the plus button in Cloud Desktop?
Yeah. I've got use a project, upload a file.
You don't have any MCP servers that have those capabilities. I'll show you an example, maybe.
That's the scaffolding. Here is my MCP server. This is looks like it's almost finished. It's just creating the documentation, the API key. This is really cool. All right.
Is it saving to your library?
Well, that isn't 100% clear. Like, is this going to be then added as an MCP server automatically into Claude Desktop? Is it something I'm just going to get the files? I have to download everything. Will it be able to execute this on my behalf? I guess. is my question. Come on, documentation's not that important. I want the output. There we go. I don't need a license.
Well, it's
Disclaimer.
probably going to create it like in your system files somewhere. And then, yeah, I would imagine it would probably say like, here, go test it. But then you can add it. You could probably use Claude to add it to your Claude configuration file. But I'm guessing you'll have to tell it to do that. We'll find out.
Because that'd be cool if this is like just something you can just kick off as a skill. And you're just like, all right, we'll just go and create all the skills I want for this task. Or you could have like a meta prompt, which is like, I want to do this thing. I reckon we might need some skills. I reckon we might need a couple of MCP servers. Can you go and just build those for me in the background?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then with like Claude Code, you can use the / commands. So you can customize where you just type / and then you have like a shortcut command. So then you layer that on top, and it's like another layer of abstraction that you can use in combination with the skills subagents as well. Is it actually going to finish? That's my question. I know it's the most frustrating thing ever when you let it spin for 10 minutes and then it just disappears.
And then it just
Claude Desktop. You have that issue?
I don't use Claude Desktop hardly at all, actually. Okay. All right, I might come back to that. Do you want to show anything for Claude Skills?
No, that was perfect. And I think this is not the only time we'll talk about that. And it's brand new. We'll have tons of use cases for this. I think we probably could use it a lot for the podcast stuff that we do. Probably could even replace a lot of the automation that I created on the Build Vault stuff.
Yeah. I would like to sit so you've done this more than me, where you've got like LangSmith tracing and logging just on like a Claude Code instance, right? Or like you've got like Claude Code running locally or whatever it is, and then you've got LangSmith like logging. And I wonder how it looks if you're calling these things. Would it actually call it out in the traces, and you can actually see, all right, well, this sub-agents and these tools started failing, or there's like an error that's like there's issues. Like I wonder if you can actually debug it.
Yeah, and something like you said, I have Claude Code configured to send all of my logs to LangSmith. So anything that I do in Claude Code goes through LangSmith, but it's configured through OpenTelemetry, and there's some, I don't know, parameters or some type of configuration that I need to. Hopefully you can get more out of it. I can just show you real quick. I guess it doesn't help just talking about it.
Because that's what I wonder about these. Like, can it expose like skills as, like how would it show them? How would I know which skills are working when? Yeah, Yeah,
so LangSmith, you're used to seeing all those details, like every single step, what tools were called. And that's interesting. I didn't change anything, and it's different now. So now you actually can see all this. So yeah, I configured, there's a knowledge base article and a YouTube video that LangChain put out. And it's very simple it's just a couple commands you put in your terminal, and then you can send all of your Claude Code traces to LangSmith. And now I can see all of this additional, like every step. It's kind of interesting to look at the costs, because they keep track of, LangSmith keeps track of the cost for all the providers. And then based on the number of tokens you use, they say, this is how much it costs. Of course, with Claude, you pay a subscription. So there are times where it's like in a day, it says like $700 in it one day. So that's cool. That is interesting. But yeah, Tom, I guess that's what you were asking about, right?
Yeah. So you can actually interrogate it. You could see like, all right, I've got these tools, these skills set up, but then it wouldn't be tagged as that. You would have to actually go into like the actual tools, or can you use the agent, Insights agent on this? Yeah,
that's exactly what when I was like, I don't have this configured right. I never had all the details. Man, I'm still confused there. But yeah, this is perfect, and exactly what I wanted to do with the insights is understand, when I use Claude Code, like what are the most common tools? Where do I run into errors? What are some things that I could maybe abstract away with skills rather than running manually? So yeah, I will experiment, and I'll report back, let you know. All right. I was just going to pull up
chat.
The Claude Code.
Oh yeah.
I just followed the instructions in this video right here.
Claude Code, yeah.
Check it out. And then they have a knowledge base article down here in the comments. So I'll just put that in the show notes.
Sick. That's really cool. The show notes that I never update. It'll be in the vault. Everybody go to the vault. The automation is in the vault. Like,
Yeah.
did you
Well,
see
Tom,
did you see the AI developed show notes from last week was like, Tom reflects on his trip to Texas and also brisket is great. That was like the first line. I'm like, I love AI summaries.
I know.
They're amazing.
And we could,
Like, it was
it's definitely
technically
not
true, but
perfect.
not what I wanted.
Exactly. And I say like so many things kind of in jest or joking. And then I read the summaries and it's like, yeah, it doesn't really pick up on sarcasm. And
I'm deliberately
jokes.
going to put those summaries in now all the time.
Yeah. So,
all right, mate. Great to talk.
All right, Tom.
Great episode.
Yeah,
Awesome
you
demo.
as well. Have a great weekend.
I look forward to seeing more DGX Wildwire experience coming back from you.
Yeah,
I'll
probably
come
Nano
with the music
Chat. I
stuff.
need to get on the Nano Chat. Unless, have you seen anything else that you're more, if you had one, you would be like, this is the first thing I would try?
I would probably wear it on my head for Halloween. I don't know. Like, I really don't know. Yeah, I actually don't know what I would do with it other than like just the nerd chops, which you obviously have.
Yeah. Somebody I was talking to or communicating with was asking about running a cloud UI and being able to use a local machine like a DGX or your cluster at home. And that's, I do have that set up using Cloudflare tunnels. So I have a web interface in the cloud that I can access from anywhere. And I have a secure connection through Cloudflare tunnels to my GPU or whatever, DGX. So whoever that was, that's the answer.
Actually, before we go, all right, this options trading thing has finished. This is what I've got.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, let's see it.
That is sick. Let's check this out. I'm so excited for this now. This is actually like the greatest. So, here we go. It's got verified all the outputs. So it's basically just built it into an output folder. All right, so here it is. This is what it's output. It's verified all the outputs in the outputs directory. Where is the outputs directory, I wonder? Mount user data outputs. So you're saying that that's actually cloud.
Yeah, that's in the cloud.
And then here are the files. I built the comprehensive production-ready options trading MCP server using the API, 5 tools, options chain, get the contract details, options analyze, Greeks, and IV. That's awesome because that was broken with my basic use of the MCP. Find the strategies and options to code option ticker symbols. Okay, well, I don't know why that's separate, but sweet. And then the quick start is here, but where exactly is that? I wonder. So
just say download files, or I would be curious if it will.
I want to know
run
if it's.
it. I don't know how it would handle the endpoint for you, but that's what I've had to do. Say like download the files, and it'll probably zip them up and give you a link.
Yeah, okay. I really wanted it to just add it all directly into my account. Like, that's what I really want. Okay. And then, so if I go back over here, cool. All right. I might spin that up and give you a preview next week. Sick. All right, mate. I got to run.
All right, Tom. Have a good one. Talk soon.
See ya.